What's up, guys? Ford 2N Tractor Part 2. Today, we obviously had a cooling problem on the last video, so we're going to look into that and see if we can't get it solved. Okay, so one of our primary issues is with our belt tensioner that's tensioning the fan / water pump. And I think the issue there is that our fan and water pump aren't spinning as fast as they should, therefore not cooling the radiator like it should, and we had our boiling coolant, which is possibly a sign of overheating. So we're going to take a look at that. First thing to do is get the gas tank out of the way. And I'll just set that back here. And now you can see what the previous belt tensioner setup was. It's just this welded on piece of angle iron for whatever reason. And then we have a strap around the generator that's much too big with a piece of rubber jammed in here to make it fit. And then this bent up carriage bolt with a bunch of nuts on it. And it's just not proper, and actually you can see when it's running the generator moving back and forth, so it's not nearly tight enough. So let me bungee this tank out of the way so that we have access to the generator. Okay, so I went ahead and picked up a new belt. And then I also have a new bracket to replace this bracket that's been welded to, and we'll probably pull that off and repurpose it so that we have a spare. But for now, we need to remove our old tensioner setup, which is going to be wherever the bolt is holding this on, right under here, holding our strap on. And then we're also going to remove these two nuts off of the head to get this bracket off and look at making a new one. Alright guys, so I obviously just cut the strap. It's pretty messed up. It's welded in the wrong spot and basically homemade, so I don't feel too bad cutting that. And we'll pull it off, and then I want to show you some pictures of what I'm going for with the new one. So got the strap off, and now lastly we need to remove these two head nuts with the bracket attached to this piece of angle iron or whatever they ended up doing here. So let me grab the tools for that. I need to get a ratchet for that. It's gonna take forever. Finally. So this is what the old bracket looks like, and I actually bought a remanufactured one of these. And then we're going to look at some pictures of what the original factory tensioner would have looked like so that we can make our own. Alright guys, so here's what we're looking at. I went to the farm supply store and I bought 3 different belts just because I couldn't find a definite answer on what the belt size was. I started off with a 44-inch and it did not fit. It was too short. Then I went to a 45. The 45-inch fits, however, with that shorter belt, the generator sits up higher, which brings the belt closer to the distributor and to the plug wires, which I don't really like. If it has any movement, it's going to hit the distributor cap and possibly the plug wires. So what I've got on here now is the 46-inch belt, and that seems like that's going to be pretty good. That gets my my governor, wrong word again, my generator, sorry. That gets my generator down enough that it pulls the belt down and away from the distributor cap and into a good place. So now, what we're going to do is try to duplicate the optional belt tensioner that you were able to get. According to what I've read, you were able to get it as an option through Ford as a way to tension your belt. So what it is there's a bracket that goes on your front 2 head bolts, and it has that little right angle like the one we just took off. And then it has a long bolt that appears to be fully threaded, which we're not going to be able to find. We're going to have to go with just a partially threaded bolt. On that bolt is a spring with a castellated nut, and then down at this end it's got a weird cutout, and I'll show you that on the new bracket. It's kind of an oblong, kind of a square looking thing with 2 little notches, and on the factory one it would have been a threaded nut with that shape on it, and that fit into the bracket to keep it in place, and then ran the bolt out here with a band that wraps around your generator, and you tighten the band down on the generator, and then you adjust this bolt in or out to loosen or tighten your belt. And what I don't fully understand is what the purpose of the spring is. I'm pretty sure all it does is give you some fine-tuning adjustment, because other than that, all of your adjustment is going to be in how long or short the bolt is, which seems like they're trying to achieve the same thing with 2 different methods there. So anyway, I'll get that new bracket on here that I have, show you what that looks like, and then I'm going to measure from my head out to the 12 o'clock position of the generator and add probably an inch or 2 just in case, and I might get a few different bolts just to get it just right. So we're going to measure from here to there. We're also going to measure the diameter of our generator and times that by 3.14 to get the circumference, so that we know how much of a strap we need to go around the generator. So let's take a look at that now. We'll just measure from the edge of the head, which is where our bracket will be, to the 12 o'clock position. Looks like 6 inches. You can see that there. And actually, I'm able to push this out a little further. So I'm going to say 6.5. So we want about a 6.5-inch bolt. I'll probably end up buying anything from 5.5 to 7.5 just to get it a few options there. So we're looking at 6.5 on the bolt there. Now if we measure the diameter of the generator, that is roughly 5 inches. So that means times pi, we're looking at roughly, that'd be about 15.5 inches. So I'm either going to look for, I'm not sure exactly what the store is going to have, but just a flat piece of strapping similar to this one that we took off, in a 15.5-inch length. Or I don't know if they're going to have some sort of a band like for plumbing related. I might look at something like that, because I think there is such a thing as 5-inch PVC, so we might have something in that section as well. So anyway, I'm going to go to the store and pick up a few items, and I'll bring you back and show you what we end up with. So this top photo is what we're trying to duplicate, and I'm having a hard time focusing on it, but as you can see, we have a band that wraps around the generator on the left side, and then there's a bolt. I'm trying to focus here. There's a bolt up at the top, and that runs through the band and is locked to it with a nut, and then there's a spring on the bolt, and then another piece that fits into our bracket on top of the head of the engine. And this focusing is just ridiculous, but anyway, let me show you what I came up with. So I went to the hardware store, and you can see here's my bracket. And so if we picture it like this, it's going to sit on, this is as if we're in the driver's seat on the tractor. This sits on the head. I got this piece of all-thread 1/2-inch rod, which I think is going to work pretty well. I've got 2 nuts to lock it down to the bracket, and then I got a spring, which the spring isn't going to make any difference, and I'll show you why here in a second. But anyway, I got a spring that fits the all-thread, so we'll slide that on just like the picture. And if anything, this is going to look just like the photo, but possibly function a little bit differently. Pull off the tag here, and we'll slide on our spring, and then this is going to run out to another bolt, which in the photo is the castle nut. Sorry, another nut. In the photo, there's a castle nut, which what I don't understand is what the purpose is of the spring at all, because you're basically going to tension the generator and the belt based on how far out you're threaded or how far in. The spring doesn't have anything to do with it, and even if it did, there's no way that you could get a stiff enough spring to tighten that belt as much as it needs to be, unless I'm misled on how tight the belt needs to be. So we'll set this up, and then what I've got in mind for the strap is the best thing I could find is just this flat piece of mild steel, and you can see here it's pretty flexible. I'm able to bend this without any trouble. So what I'll do is bend 2 90 degrees in it that meet each other, and then I'll match it to bend around the generator, and our all thread will run through those 2 90-degree bends and tighten down with these 2 nuts. So these 2 nuts will clamp them together. So I'll get that done, and we'll take a look at how everything looks when we're done. Here's what I came up with. So this does bend very easily. I started off with 190, and then I brought it out here to the generator itself and got a rough measurement of how long I needed it. And I put another 90 in, and I was too long. So all I did is straighten that back out, bend it again, and now when it fits around, I've got about maybe 2 inches between the 2 90s. And so that was perfect. So I took it back, clamped the 2 up, drilled a 1/2-inch hole through the 2, and now I took my threaded rod with the 2 nuts and jammed these together as tight as I could so that they're not going to move. And now we're going to bolt this back onto the head like so, and this will flex out, and we'll see what happens here. If I end up needing to go get a longer belt because we're running into this, that'll be fine. We'll just have to see how tight we can get it. So I'm going to put my strap on here, and run it down with the spring underneath it, just for looks. Unless we find that that spring is enough tension, we'll just leave it that way. And I'll bring you guys back in a sec. I'm sorry I don't have a tripod today, so I'm having to work a little bit and then show you my progress instead of actually bringing you along with me. But in the future, I'll have the tripod going again. Getting close here, guys. Just set you on the tire for a second. So I'm tightening the last nut down with the band, I'm going to call it, on the generator. And I've got my spring fully tensioned with each of the two adjusting nuts. And I just got to tighten this thing down quite a bit. We have a lot of extra thread, which I planned on. And I've just got to, they call it a Type C lock nut. And I kind of like these just because the nylon lock nuts look kind of modern. And what really would have been cool is to go with a square nut, kind of an old looking square nut, but we needed something that could lock this whole thing in place, so that's why I went with those. Now, one thing I'm noticing is I'm going to be real close on belt length, and I may even need to go with a 47-inch belt. We're going to see it's really close as far as the generator needing to go down, which means further out. But from what I've read, the factory length is 46¼ inches, so my 46 is definitely going to be the closest. And this is only a temporary belt. I'm going to get an actual belt that would have come on this through the Dennis Carpenter catalog. He's got genuine Ford tractor parts, so this won't be the permanent belt setup. Not exactly sure why, but this stud in particular, I'm guessing it just came unthreaded out of the block a little bit. It's quite a bit longer than the other one. So when we get the head off of this thing, we'll address that. Just kind of one thing at a time on this tractor project. I just realized something, guys. I've got this on upside down. That's my bad. No wonder it didn't want to go on right. That makes more sense. Now, it would seem as though the strap should be going on the other side of this mount. I don't know if you guys can see that, but down at the bottom here, there's a mount on each side, like a bracket, on each side of our governor, and we want to go in between the two, is what I'm thinking is going to fit the best. So let me take this nut off and readjust for that. Ugh, finally. Okay, so we just want to move this up, like I said, up here. Just snap it on this time. Perfect. All that work just for that. So as you can see, I'll bring you guys up here and show you this. This head stud is sticking out way too far compared to all the others that are just about flush. And this one is in too far. So, like I said, once we get this all taken apart and put back together correctly, we'll fix all that. Alright, one more nut here. And then we can tension our belt and see how that looks. The differences with my design are that my design actually clamps the generator. Instead of only pushing on it, it actually helps support it as well with these two nuts that clamp the band. Also, you're able to tension it much tighter. Not that you necessarily need to, but much tighter and more accurately. And I'm thinking what Ford's design offered is a little bit of deflection in the belt, similar to like today's spring or hydraulic tensioners. They can deflect a little bit for the belt, where this one will stay tight. However, if it ends up being an issue, or if any of you guys know who are watching and can let me know in the comments, I can always take off this inside nut and add a stiffer spring so that I follow that original design also to where it's spring loaded and can move. But for now, I'm just going to check my tension, and it seems a little loose. Not that I really know how tight it needs to be, but a lot of specs are to look at the longest run of the belt and look for sorry about my strap, look for half an inch of deflection, and we have more like 1.5 inches. So all we're going to do to tension the belt is go to this inside nut and run it out to pull on the band tighter. So let me do that and see what kind of change it makes.
Let's go a few more turns. Sounds like I have an angry squirrel behind me.
Alright, let's check our tension there. We're probably at roughly 1 inch there. I think I'll go a tad more. It is a new belt, so it's gonna familiarize itself here in a minute after we run it, and we'll probably have to recheck our tension again. That's pretty good. Last thing I'm going to do is just, this spring has twisted a little bit. So I'm going to just relieve some of the tension on that. That looks pretty good. And our belt is nice and tight. Last thing I wanted to show you guys in relation to this belt, these were brand new plug wires one ride ago. So that last ride we took, I had put these on just before that. And you can see this one is eaten almost all the way through because of that old belt. It was so sloppy, it went all over the place and rubbed this spark plug wire, and now it has almost cut all the way through it. So I'll definitely be replacing these, but this is another reason to get that taken care of so that that doesn't happen again. Let's grab a hacksaw and cut off just a little bit of our excess. We want to leave quite a bit because, like I said, if we decide to go with a different belt that's a little bit longer, we're going to need more length on this tensioning rod. So we'll probably just cut half of this off. Just run into the shop here and get a hacksaw. And as long as our battery's up, we can give this a start and see how it runs. I think we should be safe going there. Alright, get some tools out of the way here. And if I can, when I put this video together, I'll include a photo now of what this looked like before. And this isn't really the final look. I'm still gonna correct that spring and paint this, obviously, and then we'll cut our excess off. But this definitely looks a lot cleaner than the old. And here's a look at what that was. So we had this bent piece of angle iron, broken old bracket, rusty bent carriage bolt, and then our welded up junky band here. So nice to have the new and improved look. I'm guessing our battery's down, but we'll give it a try here. Smells plenty gassy. Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to put my wiring tube back on. Let me bolt that down quick and bring you guys back. Just a second.